Hello, everybody, and welcome to Forever Sports, and a very new, interesting twist in the Asenathi Ntlabakanye doping case, with the hearing that was originally scheduled for December, then we heard moved to January, will now only take place as soon as potentially March, as a result of different circumstances which forcing the hearing to continue to kind of be delayed. And the big news for the Lions, for example, is that he is available to be selected until he has had his hearing and they have reached a verdict, which means that he will be able to play for at least another 4 or so months for the Lions until he has his hearing, as both parties apparently are trying to secure better expert opinions and sort of more resources to kind of go into the hearing itself. Before you get to it, please do smash a like on the video. Please do subscribe to the channel as well. So basically what happened is about 6 months ago now, maybe a bit less, Asenathi Ntlabakanye, they released a statement basically saying that he had admitted, or he had rather written down on a form, basically that he had taken a prescribed medication which was on the list of prohibited substances. He then tested positive for a banned substance earlier this year as well, in a similar sort of scenario. So basically the two substances, same kind of medication there was prescribed, and one was he actually tested positive, the other one he actually didn't test positive, but he admitted, or he disclosed that he had taken it under medical advice. And SA Rugby actually, released the statement to basically say this is the situation. There was an adverse finding. Even before the adverse finding, they had actually disclosed that he'd taken a substance which they was realized that was actually on the list. And they basically released a statement to say that their lawyers were basically, preparing a case, that they're fully behind him, and they basically said that he had done nothing wrong, and that it was actually the mistake of a medical professional who works in the rugby sort of world that had prescribed it, and therefore it's basically saying that it was malpractice by the medical profession. Now, it's an interesting situation because when it comes to doping cases, the burden of proof lies on the guilty party to basically show evidence that they took every possible step to ensure that they did not take anything illegal. And they basically got to prove that they did everything they did, everything in their power to not take substances, versus, basically trying to sort of explain how it did happen. And these days, the concept of I didn't know, or I wasn't aware, is no longer a defense. Basically athletes and professional athletes are drilled now to say that you are responsible for everything that enters your system, and that the excuse of I didn't know does not work anymore. However, this is now a situation where they're basically saying that he sought medical advice, so he was proactive about it, that the doctor in question was obviously backed up and affiliated with the Lions or SA Rugby, the likes of that, and that it was professional medical help from somebody within the environment that would understand what you can take, what you can't take, etc., etc. And that is basically why SA Rugby have backed Asenathi Ntlabakanye and basically said that he acted in the right faith. For example, he was proactive in the whole situation, and he didn't do anything wrong. So that was basically back in August, where they basically realized that they announced that there was an adverse analytical finding. And that was done by, the South African Institute for Drug-Free Sport, which is AIDS. And basically, they said there was supposed to be a hearing in December. Now, the reason it was not banned immediately is that the substance involved does not fall into a category requiring an automatic provisional ban, which means that there's different sort of levels, basically, of sort of substances that you can test positive for. And so basically, because it didn't fall into that category, he was not given a provisional ban. And he also did not voluntarily opt to stand down, because he's maintaining his innocence. He's basically saying that he disputes that it was a doping violation. He disputes that he did anything wrong. It was basically taken for medical reasons. It was prescribed by a professional in the industry, and that he is not basically deliberately doped, and basically denies the accusation itself. So he was originally not picked for New Zealand tour. As a result of this, that was then called up eventually for the end of year tour and the likes of that. Now, basically, apparently what's happening is that Khalid Galant, the CEO of the South African Institute for Drug-Free Sport, which is SAIDS, said that the matter has been moved into the last week of March, with both the athletes' representatives as well as SAIDS still securing expert opinions and basically building a better case for the hearing. Both parties, basically. And I think it's I think it's very good, basically, that the due diligence has been taken. I think it's a bit frustrating, for example, that a player's career continues to sort of hang in the balance. And based in terms of punishments, he could be banned for up to 4 years. That's a maximum ban. However, given the scenario, people are, or the general feeling, and some of the professionals who have been involved in this process are saying that it's more likely to potentially be a 1 to 2 year ban if there is a ban itself. So given the fact that it was a sports doctor and somebody in the profession that prescribed the medication, that will obviously probably be treated as a mitigating factor. And obviously, whatever he tests positive for will be also obviously impacted. So if there is a ban, we're looking at 1 to 2 years. But I think it's frustrating because if there was a hearing, for example, in December, and there was a 1 year ban, he would be back by next year, December, potentially making him, maybe unlikely, but an option for like the World Cup. If you're suddenly going to get a ban in April, May, for example, and he gets a ban for a year, that's a 2027 World Cup gone. I really, really hope that whatever the situation is, they find a really good decision on it. You don't want to see players banned. And I think the main thing is you want to see the appropriate punishment. If a player is guilty, that they have, not taken the right steps, for example, that they are at fault, then, let the hammer fall and let the man serve his punishment. But if it is proven that he took all the right steps, that, he basically trusted in somebody who was recommended within the industry that you should be able to trust, for example, and that was where there was a letdown. And I think SA Rugby were involved, which is why they've probably been because when we saw a Pure Janti tested positive, there was no statement of support coming from SA Rugby. Given the fact that that is the situation, I think they might have been involved, or even the doctors might have been involved within the SA Rugby, list or whatever, or worked with the SA Rugby medical team and the likes of that. So if, for example, it's proven that, he did nothing himself wrong, for example, the substance wasn't massively performance enhancing, the likes of that, then maybe he might get away with sort of a slap on the wrist. But the point is, we're not going to get a decision in December. It's a good news from a Lions point of view. He'll be able to play for the next few months, but it continues to be a bit of a cloud over him. And lots of people are saying that, what does that mean, that if it does get banned, any games he played are forfeit? Absolutely not, because it is not a substance that carries an automatic provisional ban, which means that he is under no obligation to step down and stop playing, and none of those results, for example, will change, or anything like that. So that's the kind of situation, and we continue to exactly see what the hearing will take place and kind of what the sort of scenario will be. But unfortunately, right now, all we know is that it will only take place at the end of March, and that he will be able to feature for Lions as he did this past weekend for the next few months. Let me know what you think is going to happen down in the comments below. Smash a like on the video, subscribe to the channel as well. Thank you very much for watching. My name is Steve. I'll chat to you soon.